The theme of alien threat occupied the minds of people at the end of the last century. Numerous theories and rumors that we're not alone in the universe inspired the creation of various artworks, books, movies, TV series, and of course, video games. And today we will dive into game design of XCOM, the project that resurrected popular in mid-90s Alien Invasion franchise. Together we will try to find the secret essence of this project, how it managed to build huge loyal fanbase, and why do people immerse themselves in this world for hundreds of hours. And if you're ready to go, I got a message for you.
Hello, Commander. In light of the recent extraterrestrial incursion, this Council of Nations has convened to approve the activation of the XCOM project. You have been chosen to lead this initiative, to oversee our first and last line of defense.
XCOM successfully refreshed the long-forgotten alien invasion theme. Animalistic fear of the unknown threat makes our hearts beat faster. And imagination drew picture of the total chaos. This has to be stopped, and to succeed, we need to overcome myriad of strategic and tactical challenges. But first, let's find out how core mechanics works. So we will start with the one question. How did he miss this shot? It was 95% chance. Oh god. One of the core mechanic in XCOM combat system is based on the chance to hit probability calculation. Community complains a lot about the consistency of this system. There are numerous forum threads, videos and experiments. All this in order to reveal the truth and clear how it actually works. I'll try to accumulate the conclusions that they all collect to answer two following questions. How this chance to hit system works, and most importantly, why it works this way, and what results developers try to achieve. In-game displayed probability is directly related to the basic accuracy stats of the soldier plus equipment modifier. After, this amount is deducted by the enemy's defense rating and the cover modifier. If the results are negative, minimum of 1% value is taken instead. But that's not all. After that, to resulted value, the distance to the target coefficient is added. It can be either positive or negative. We will consider this a bit later. So, as a result, we have an estimated percentage chance to hit, the value which is shown in the interface. But many players are concerned about discrepancy between this value and the real outcome, and we'll try to find why. First is the difficulty levels of XCOM. Game designers not only try to adapt the game to players with different skill levels, but also hit a couple of tricks. The fact is that each level of difficulty affects not only the basic resources income, stats of characters and other visible things, but also slightly deceives the core probability calculation system. For example, at a low difficulty, an additional hidden coefficient is added that increases the chance of each hit by about 20% above the one that's shown in combat interface. Or another case, if a shot with a chance above 50% misses, the next is added with a hidden 15% extra, stacking up to 3 times or till hit is landed. In addition, players found the dependence of the hit chance on the number of alive squad members. The overall chance increased when there's 4 or less XCOM fighters left on the battlefield. So should we even believe these display chance to hit values after that? Of course not. It is clear though that all these hidden corrections was made in order to make the game more friendly. But every design decision has its consequences. And in this case, this lack of clear understanding caused players to blame XCOM for unfairness. So maybe Firaxis should implement the system in a different way, or plunge us in the math details and formulas. There is no correct answer, sadly. At least we will not get one. In the end, the main goal was to provide the player with a complex tactical gameplay and keep him on his toes. And they actually did it. Second feature is exact moment at what this probability check is performed. The logical expectation tells us that this procedure runs right before each shot, just like you toss a coin, because there is diversity on which character exactly you will decide to perform the first move and which will be the following. But it works differently. Before the start of each turn, game generates an array of random values by throwing virtual dice from 1 to 100. So whatever the player does and whichever character he picks, the outcome of this throw is predetermined. Moreover, after a particular action, all following throws and action outcomes are predetermined either. Let's take an example. We got our turn. In this hidden array, the first value is 94. Our squad of 4 soldiers has the following accuracy: 55, 65, 80 and 95. Thus, no matter what we do and no matter how many times we load the save game, only the soldier whose chance to hit is higher than 94 will land a hit. All others will miss. The opposite is also true. If the next number in this array is, for example, 15, then any squad member with a chance higher than 15% will land a hit. For criticals, this also works. If the chance to hit is 80% and the critical strike chance is 16%, the intervals of values in the array from 1 to 16 will correspond to a critical hit, from 17 to 80 regular hit, and from 80 to 100 will be a miss. I think now it's generally clear how this system works. By the way, there are 3 more variables in this calculation. It is the class of the soldier, the type of the weapon, and of course the game difficulty mode. All of this can affect this calculation directly on the fly. Now the most important question, why it was done this way. And the reason is obvious: to avoid safe load scum. This approach forces the player to think through actions several steps ahead, engage in risk management, and always assume the possibility of failure. It is this mechanic that fills the core gameplay with depth and complexity. For this, players love and hate XCOM. And this is its distinctive feature. There may be few more reasons of this approach, but let's keep it for speculations in the comment section if it comes to that. So this probability calculation system is at the heart of tactical gameplay, being its pillar, but there are many other systems built around it which implement it to saturate and diversify each combat situation. Let's take a look at squad management within equipment and ranking promotion systems. The recipe is established long ago. There are several classes of soldiers and there is few options for how to equip and level them up. Each player is free to invent their own skill combinations and tactical schemes. And the most important thing is the skill balance. This is actually pretty simple. All skill options can be useful in certain situations. Just several classes that differs fundamentally in strength, weaknesses, combat skills, and the only choice of 2 abilities for each leveling rank gives you a very small possibility of customization. But the higher rank of the soldier, the more variable this skill set becomes. And this is a great example of how the game gradually reveals new mechanics and gameplay features before the player. Next is the weapon arsenal. It is quite modest, but each new item researched and produced feels like a progress. Weapon classes itself, as we mentioned earlier, have a range coefficient that affects chance to hit probability. Shotguns get a bonus to accuracy at a close range, where sniper rifles receives penalty, and so on. Both ranking promotion and equipment systems reveals gradually, so player begins to evaluate his squad much more. Add here visual customization that comes to emphasize emotional ties between commander and his soldiers. You can even name troops here. And everything should have been great in this story, if not the combat losses that we have to bear. That is actually an immersive instrument. The fact is that moments of true triumph are impossible without losses. Otherwise, the value is lost, and you take it for granted. It is the attachment of the player that makes combat losses so emotional. But without this risk, the feeling of success when you manage to return the whole squad from another suicidal mission is unattainable. In turn-based tactics, it can be very difficult to establish personal connections between player and his characters. Usually soldiers are pieces on chessboard. But after going through significant challenges with these soldiers, players start to treat them carefully and provides the best equipment and upgrades, making an emotional connection along the way. But why do devs so need this connection? This is one of the few ways to immerse the player in the game world. They transform from the concept of their base, their squad, to my base, my squad, thereby reducing the analytical perception and increasing the emotional involvement. Actually, the game has enough analytical tasks. Gameplay literally requires to constantly make complex decisions, and significant part of this is performed between tactical missions. This is the part we will move to. Formerly called Geoscape mode, now it is XCOM base management, referring to the history of the project. Almost all the tasks that we will face in this mode are aimed to obtaining tactical advantages on the battlefield and preparing our squad to next mission. It allows us to look at the gameplay from a slightly different angle, when we move from risk management and tactics to more strategic and even predictive challenges. Here the systems of building, production and research gets their heyday, and it is important that these systems are provided with the resources gathered from successful tactical operations. The cycle locks. A variable and detailed research tree gives player freedom to choose ways of development, providing him with the pieces of lore along the way. For those who want to learn more about XCOM, this is an element perfectly integrated in the gameplay. The construction of buildings also sets the analytical and planning challenges. So is production itself, although not sophisticated, but still a solid feature that requires a bit of planning and resource management. Which would be one of the most difficult tasks if only black market doesn't exist, where at any moment we can sell all the alien corpses. I've always wondered who would buy that sectoids in such amounts. In addition, there are satellites, hangars, specialized modules, but instead dwelling on them in detail, we will try to find the main goal of all these elements. As you can see, Geoscape mode requires different skills, and allows you to switch from an intense tactical combat and get a respite before another meeting with an alien threat. And this constant scenery shift between phases of base management, preparation and tactical missions is so addictive that player plunges into gaming trance for hours. Now one more mission, or wait for this research project to complete. Sounds familiar, right? So why does it happen? And I've been waiting for this right moment to discuss with you the phenomenon of absolute focus of the player and his full involvement in the gameplay, that in game design is called flow state. I'll try to convey the essence of this term in a simplified way. There is a perfect mental state of the player, being where he is fully immersed in the process. On the edges of this state, on the one hand, the frustration when the player doesn't know where to go, distracted by unnecessary details, or he meets a challenge that cannot overcome. On the other edge, boredom caused by monotony gameplay, meaningless grinds, one-type missions, and lack of fair challenges and rewards. This ideal mental state in between those edges is the flow state. It is dynamic though, and not linear. In the ideal model, it is a curve resembling a dispersing sinusoid, in which the ascents are moments of increased tension, the peaks are moments of overcoming significant challenges, and descents are the relaxation and preparation for the next rise. Constantly keeping the player in strains will not work either. Human mental resources are limited, as well as if you give a lot of idle time. It is simply boring. This flow must be constantly maintained, and the player must be encouraged to stay in the game. This is simply chains of tense and releases that constantly evolving through the gameplay. I hope I made the point. So back to XCOM. This project fits perfectly to analyze this flow state phenomenon. In order to keeping player in the stream, all elements of the game do their best and even more. In XCOM, this flow curve has multi-level structure. A bit confusing, but let me show you. First, the global level. Obviously, it is a transitions between tactical missions where the maximum tension is achieved and the main gameplay challenges faced, which represents the rise and peak, and strategic management phase, a moment of relaxation and preparation for the next leap. It is release. Next layer, let's call it middle one, lays inside tactical missions, so when you engage in one, the rise of tension begins, and the peak is reached exactly when your troops getting spotted by overwhelming enemy forces. After, when aliens broke to a small groups and it remains only to finish them off, comes release phase. That short relaxation, regrouping, licking wounds, and next loop starts. And both tension and release states alternates until the very end of each tactical mission. But even that is not all. In XCOM, there is a third, almost imperceptible level that lasts only few seconds. This is the moment when player pressing the firing button. Animation begins, tension rises hastily, and a peak provided by either hit or a miss. Isn't this magic? Even such details as firing cutscenes are implemented not only for aesthetics, but also work to immerse the player in this mental state. Every human being is different, and there is no perfect recipe for right mental stream fitting to all players. But XCOM got tools that allow player to regulate his own gameplay pacing. It is turn-based and gives a direct control on the duration of each phase. If you are tired of the last mission, you can spend more time on the base, subconsciously increasing time of release phase, reading research reports or consider building orders. And eventually, at any moment you can get a break to catch your breath. This is what makes XCOM an ideal example of flow state aimed approach implementation. That was our main theme here. But let's move on. Another remarkable feature that distinguishes XCOM is the cinematic narrative scenes. Perfectly implemented visually, they enliven this world. The goal is to delve deeper and reveal the characters and lore from all angles. Here is an example, fleeting and almost insignificant.
Thank you, Commander. This research will take some time. We will notify you once it is complete.
Commander to mission control. Commander to
It sounds like you are needed elsewhere. Farewell, Commander. If you recover any additional artifacts during your field operations, I would be quite eager to study them.
This is a request that addressed directly to the player, and that representing how XCOM makes personal touch and breaks the fourth wall. After all, the setting here is based on a militaristic organization created by the Council of Nations to counter this invasion, and the military theme can be traced through many elements of the game. Radio conversations are filled with this spirit entirely. Short, clear phrases, call signs and command codes, all which emphasize the military coordination standards. Now let's talk about sound design. And first, the voice acting. Here the XCOM promotes the theme of international interracial cooperation against aliens, and this is emphasized by the different races and accents of the characters. Also, in Enemy Within DLC, soldiers themselves can speak one of the several languages. This was implemented to highlight a detailed disclosure of XCOM motives, to save the planet by joint efforts of humanity at any cost. And they succeeded. As for the musical accompaniment, XCOM got epic music themes that convey the spirit of military marches, along with a quiet and mysterious ambient that creates an atmosphere of suspense and fear of the unknown. Everything as it should be. Great job. Next, I would like to discuss the technical part of the project and the Unreal Engine itself. Devs previously relied solely on in-house developed engines, but the capabilities of Unreal Engine 3 allowed them to speed up and optimize many development processes. For example, they have achieved a quickest prototyping at all stages of development. The Matinee editor, an animation tool that works with Unreal Engine, allowed them to speed up production of in-game cutscenes. With Build Management System, they created a build tree for various platforms, PC, X360 and PS3. As for the game physics, they managed to implement destructible objects and adaptation of enemy AI to these landscape changes. Dev team also admitted that to solve non-trivial issues, they turned to the Unreal Development Network community for help and found solutions there. So this is a great example of how a professional and very experienced team used all tools that helps optimize and ease development process. To sum up, the XCOM project is an icon for both turn-based tactics genre and entire industry. Back in 2012, it became one of the first full-scale AAA games that successfully relaunched classic franchise after long oblivion. This was achieved by delicately transferred core gameplay elements of classic XCOM. And in many ways, the success of this project was provided by the support of the loyal community. We're waiting for so long to dive once more in the challenges of XCOM. After all, only you the one who can give the hope to this world. Commander. Thank you guys very much for watching, and if you liked this video, you know what to do. I'll see you soon. Bye.